Well, this is a bit embarrassing. Yes, I know I said I'm not going to update the face textures anytime soon, and here I am going back on my word. You know, I did some research on some professional VTuber models, and I think I got some pretty good ideas on how to improve my eye wigging, and I really want to try them out, and my impatience got the better of me. So here we are. A bit of tinkering around in Stable Diffusion cooked up this image, and I really like what's going on here with the reflections on the irises and the little highlight here on the eyelashes. Gives them a very voluminous and 3D look. And I also like the eyebrows. The ears need update as well, and so does the back hair. So yeah, pretty good result. And I went ahead and cut out the elements and put them into my spreadsheet. And you can now see how much bigger the new iris is compared to the last one. And I also separated the highlights from the iris into a different part of this texture so that I can animate the highlights, which is something I couldn't do until now. And this will probably add a lot of life to the eyes. So let's go through the textures and update the UV mappings. I start with the iris. Let's adjust the position of the texture and the scaling. This should do. And now we need to reposition the sprite and apply a rescale because it's now freakishly big. So on 0.3, I don't know. Oh, this is still too big. Wow, okay. These textures are massive. Probably like this. This is probably the correct size. And after adding the right eye, my character turned full yandere. Luckily, we already have a highlight layer, so we just need to adjust the mapping for that. And I'm going to do that real quick. All right. Like this. Okay, this looks already much better. So let's continue with the eyelashes. Probably like this. Yeah, okay. Let's try this. Like this. Okay. To make it look a little bit more anime, I have another layer here that is basically a duplicate of the original eyelashes, just with a little bit of transparency applied, so that the eyelashes shine through the front hair bangs. So now that the right side is there as well, let's repeat the process for the lower eyelash. There we go. And now we must still add a duplicate of the eyelash top version that gets mirrored to the downside for the eye close animation. So let's do this next. Somewhere like this. Okay. All right. Let's do the same for the right part. Alright, let's check out some animations to see if it works properly. And I think we got it right. Now we can continue with the eyebrows. Alright then, we got the eyebrows done as well. And let's hop right into the final and most interesting part of this, because we are adding physics to our irises. Let's go. So, I thought about ways to add physics to my eyes, and I think the easiest way would be to add another jiggle bone. And this jiggle bone should be located directly inside the pupil. So, let's do this. I extend the chain of the iris bones here by 1 and add a new bone. And immediately you can see that all the jiggle modifiers are messed up. This is unfortunately something that is happening all the time in Godot 4. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but it's really annoying and I hope they're gonna fix this soon. Because what we have to do now is we go back to our skeleton modifier and adjust the bone IDs for all the bones that come below the just added bone in the scene tree. So like, for example, the front hair has jiggle bones, so we got to adjust the IDs for the bones controlled by these jiggle modifiers by adding 1 to each. I don't know why this doesn't happen automatically, but it's really annoying. You gotta deal with it until it's fixed. So we go back to our modification stack, and now I have to go through all the entries in the modification stack and update the new bone IDs. It seems like the legs are affected as well, so basically all of them. So I need to increase the IDs here and do this for basically every element. So now that we got all this fixed, let's discuss what we are going to do with our 2 bones. The first bone is just holding the highlight layer so that I can move the highlight layer separate from the rest of the eye. And the second bone is going to be a bone that we use to detect the movement of the eye. So this is a jiggle bone pointing to the top right. And I'll quickly demonstrate why I want this bone to be pointed at top right. Because if I now move around the character, you will see that the bone can respond to both up or down movement and left or right movement. So next we need to map the highlight layout to the highlight bone, obviously. So let's go to our UV editor and edit the UV mapping for the left highlight. Let's remove those. And instead we attach to iris highlight. So now if I go back to the iris highlight bone, if I move the bone around, only the highlights move and nothing else. So if we go back to our main script for this model, I added 2 new bones as exports, and these are the highlight bones that we just created. So we can now access them from code and apply rescaling based on the movement of our jiggle bone. So the script I added is rather simple. I get the rotation value of the jiggle bone, I compare with the default rotation of the jiggle bone, and I use this difference to rescale the highlight bone so that every time the jiggle bone moves around because the iris is moving, the highlight bone gets rescaled. So at the next step, I want to apply the same technique to the lenses inside the iris. because I want them to jiggle as well. So let's go into the iris polygon and adjust the UV mapping. And what we're going to do here is we add a few more points around the center area. And we add polygons. And now we can give our bones that control the highlights control over the lens in the middle as well. So let's add the eye iris highlight bone for the center vertices. So everything else will still get the regular mod bone. So let's do the same for the other eye. All right. One more thing I wanted to change, because remember, I did my research before, was the eye blink animation, because the current one looks a little bit boring and static. And I did just a small change, but it makes all the difference in the world. Look at the difference between my current model that is currently talking to you and the animation I'm going to play now. Small change, big effect. Just slightly moving the irises downwards during this animation makes this so much more expressive. It also has the added benefit that it also triggers the jiggle bone, because there's movement, and when there's movement, there's jiggle. So we're catching two birds with one stone here. So for the last step, I adjusted a little bit more of the eye rigging by giving the outlines of the eye a little bit of rescaling as well, so that whenever the highlights bounce, the rest of the iris also bounce, but just a little, not as much as the highlights. I also made it so that the lens in the middle is moving slightly ahead of the rest of the iris. So if I turn the head to the left side, then you can see that the lens is now a little bit off-center. And if I turn to the other side, then it's also off-center, but in the other direction. And this way, the eyes look more round. I also added a little bit of shading over here. And another highlight layer, which is this one. And you might have noticed already, I also updated the ear texture to a higher resolution texture. And with that, the head rigging is mostly done. As you can see on screen right now, I had to switch to my very old model because I was dumb and already compiled this and overwrote my last model. I only have the very old model now and the very new model. So, well, as an added benefit, the difference will be much larger then. So let's get ready for the final comparison. This is the old model with the old textures and the old eye rigging. And this is the new model, and I am so happy. Look how good this looks. The eyes are so much cleaner and detailed now, and there's like highlights in them. They're sparkling, and I'm actually looking at the camera now instead of this weird 100-mile stare. Look at the little cutesy bounce the eyes do whenever I'm blinking, and I'm in love. I love this so much. I'm so happy. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and have fun, and see you again. Bye-bye.